Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. Today I thought I would go over some Excel forms. Before we go too far, if you look down below, I have attached a link to my Dropbox location and a couple of my Excel forms, and I'm going to actually go over those forms and how you can alter them and use them to for yourselves. If you download a copy of it, as long as obviously you have the program, any Excel program should work, any version of it. If you have an older one, there is an attachment you can get that will actually transpose the newer versions of Excel, so you can still use them on the old ones. But we're going to go over those, and you can actually open those up with two windows on your screen and split screen it half and half, and you should be able to just go ahead and do it while I'm talking about it. But I'm going to show you how to alter some of these. And again, these are forms that I've personally created. I usually add color and square them off in subtitles and column titles, and I usually format all my cells in that, and I copy them. I use the tabs on the bottom, in a workbook, and I use it as a full-fledged workbook instead of just a page. I like to label everything. I like to, again, as I said, color everything and code it so I know it's easy to read, it looks more professional, and it's a easier help for us. But we're going to go over to the screen, and I'm going to touch base on Excel. Okay, so I picked one of my older forms to show you today. My newer forms have a lot more to them. There's a lot more formulas. There's a lot of things that most people wouldn't use. So I picked one of my 2014 expense sheets. I'm going to show you an expense sheet first. I have a copy of this same expense sheet, one that I've cleared out all the numbers, still has the formulas other than the ones you're going to have to link to your own file, but I will show you how to do that too. So you can literally follow along if you wish. Using Excel, everything you download from PayPal or eBay can be actually downloaded into a CSV file, and you can do it as a comma delineated, and that'll make it into a form that you can open up. Literally, just open up that same downloaded file from eBay or Amazon. You can open it up in Excel, and you can do anything you want with it, just like it's an Excel formula when you do that. And that's how I do all my forms. Everything's linked together. Again, this is an expense sheet. You have a copy of this you can open up as well if you want to play around with it. You can do it while we're looking at it, whichever the case may be, but it's down in the description for this video. Everything in here is linked and tied to a specific tab in this folder. This is basically, Excel is basically like a workbook folder. Like literally, if you were in an office and there was a folder full of stuff, this is literally how you'd store it, but it's digitally stored. So you'll have a main page like this one here. This is the main page on the workbook, and then you've got different tabs that each are their own sheets. Yeah, I have one sheet for each month: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way through. All 12 months are on here, and then I've separated them. This is just for doing expenses. These same forms, though, the same thing you see here on the screen, could be used for doing your projections as well. But as I said, everything in Excel is tied together. And again, you can use these for any type of form. The same layout I have here, all you need to do is change some of these titles. You could put in a different category and use each one of these columns for a category instead. And then you could do them by, day of the month. If you only wanted to do, tracking by the week, just put 4 rows here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for 5 weeks in the month. And then you can just literally track each category. And then you can tie those categories here and look at them week by week and compare them. Literally, this is how I do every form I do. I know Excel very, very well. We were required to use it for many of the regional positions that I had. But this is how I kept track of $11+ million. I think it was like 11.3 annually in sales and, expenses for a bunch of stores when I was a regional manager. This is how I've always done everything that I do tracking-wise for pretty much everything. This I made. I've done the colors. I set up the blocks. I set up all the formulas, and I tied in everything in it you see here. It's not as hard as it seems. Like, all these figures come from somewhere. Like, here's a supply column. That corresponds with each month that I have. You can see supply. This is January, and I have a supply column. So if I buy something on the 4th, I write that in on here on the supply list. Now, there's some days that you may have more than just buying one thing, and that's an easy one to handle. I'll show you that real quick here. Let's say I bought something and I need to add a couple things up. You can either add them in a calculator and just pop them in there, or you can hit equals, And then let's say I have a $10 item, and then I hit enter. Well, so let's say I just bought something else and I want to add something. So then all you got to do is hit the plus sign, and then whatever else you get, say you get $34, and then it gives you the total in there. But that's all there really is to it. It'll do that on any of these cells. But that's how you add up stuff on a cell. Some of the other cells on here, aren't written in that way. Here's another example where I've gotten 2 items in the same day that I have to account for. Here's more than that. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4 items. And again, it's just a matter of plussing it and adding more items in there. And that way you can break it down to make sure there's no loss. So if you've got a bunch for the day, hit the equal sign and then just add them together. You can see the formula up here. And this is where you could add it in, so just hit the plus and add something else, and no matter what it is. This keeps track of everything. That way, your receipts for that day or for the month will match every time. There isn't just an added total. In some of these figures, like this one here, this one actually comes from an eBay sheet. I'll download a sheet. Let me see if we can pop if I have it open. Yeah, here's a sheet right here. I'll open up a sheet. And this is literally where I get my totals from. This is the sheet that I downloaded off of eBay. It is my monthly sales sheet. And anybody can download this. It's available to anybody. It might take you a little time to have one put together if you've got a lot of items. Same thing with the PayPal sheets. I download every sheet that PayPal offers every month. It's same with eBay. Then I weekly check the sales. And then at the end of the month, I compare to make sure everything's correct. Then you're looking for the figure here, net eBay and PayPal fees, and that's the number you are going to do. So let's flip back over here. Let's say this number isn't here. Let's delete what I have here. And I want to get my total eBay and PayPal fees off that sheet. That's the sheet I downloaded. All you do is hit equals, and you're going to Alt-Tab back to the correct sheet you just had. Make sure you get the right month, which is January, the second in the middle column. And that's my fees right there. So once I highlight the item, I click on the square that has the total I need, I just hit enter. And now what happens is it brings that total here. And even if you change anything on this sheet, it is always going to pull that total. So let's say there's an error in a sheet you're pulling from up here somewhere. It's just going to change the total on this sheet, and it'll automatically be updated to this sheet here no matter what. Like the tax line here. This comes from the PayPal monthly report, and that's how I get my sales tax from to balance it to make sure it's correct versus the numbers I have off my eBay. So that's how I do the sales tax. And again, these all tie back to the main page here. So that column that had all the eBay fees in it, for every month I have that same column, the same sheet everywhere, and it pulls from that month's sales report. So I downloaded February's on this one, and that's where this one is. And let me show you how I save these too. I save everything. This is just my eBay sales, but I do the same thing with PayPal. I do a 1 if it's January. So the first thing in this file is 1, and then it comes up to PayPal January. That's my January report. And so for the second month, I've got February. It's number 2. So literally I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down through 12. And that way I can instantly tell, no matter what, which month I am looking at. That's just an easy way to categorize it. They're all in order. They're done as you get them in. So January, February, and you can just number them. I put them in a folder just like this. This folder here is just one just for YouTube, so I can, if I mess up any numbers, they're not any numbers that I need. And then just like this one here, here's my eBay sales, for example. I've labeled it 2004 eBay monthly sales. I'll open it up, and then literally the same thing. 1 is January, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. This ties in for everything, so no matter what you do, you've got the same one. You just look for 2s. I've got all 2s. 2. So in my eBay monthly sales, 2 is the one I want if I'm doing February. In my PayPal forms and fees, 2 is the one I want. Same thing I do with payroll. The same thing I do with some of my purchase reports. I label them all 1 through 12 for the month that it is as the very first item. That way they're in order, so there's no mixing them up. It's just a no-brainer for me anyway. That's how I did it as a business, so that's still how I do it, when I'm doing it as my own business. Let me get out of here. Okay. Now we're back to this sheet again, but you can see those forms are just literally the forms I just showed you. And all you hit is an equals. You Alt-Tab or you steer yourself to the right content. Let's close this one off here. But you Alt-Tab and steer yourself to the right content and just hit. I'll do it one more time for you here. Wherever you want it. It can go anywhere. Let's just put in equals. Any number we want to transfer over from this form, all you got to do is click it. Highlight the one, make sure it's in this little equals box up here, and then hit enter. And there it is. There's our number. It is transferred to this one. And they stay together no matter what, as long as you don't change the name on the files. So always keep the same files. No big deal there. And after I'm done with a month, I've put a formula in down here that adds up each and every column. So all the supplies are added up into this bottom here and show up here. And it's just a formula. So you can hit, there's several ways to get a formula. This is just a sum function. It adds up everything inside these parentheses, these brackets, and it'll add them together. Let's just delete this, and I'm going to show you how to do it several ways. So you've got this column now, and we need the total for all the supplies for this month. So we're going to add up that total. There's a real quick way to do it. Right up here in Excel is called Auto Sum. You click Auto Sum, and it's going to pick what it thinks is the correct one. It's not yet, but you'll have to compare the numbers. So this is a cell. We've got Auto Sum in cell B, which is B column. B is this column. Then there's C column, D column, E column, and then they're all numbered by cell rows. So we're in 34, so we're B34. So we want everything that has a number that has a total we put in added up in this sum. But we want everything that's added up in here. So this number isn't correct quite totally because it's not adding up the whole column. It's only adding up to where it thinks it is. So what we want to do is see where the first box, first cell, that's going to have information that we want to include in every single total. And that is B column number 3 right here, because it's the first day of this month of January. So we're going to go down here and we're going to change this first number into a 3 and then just hit enter. And what this is going to do, it's going to show you up here in this equal box everything we need to include to add to, it's going to equal the sum of these boxes, which is B number 3 all the way through B33. And that's all there is to that sum. Now you can type this in manually too. Let's delete this one here real quick. I'll type this one in manually. So I want to equals sum. You'll put in the little bracket, which is above the 9 key. And then this is the C column. And we want C3 colon and then C down to 33, just like it says in the other one. And then the brackets, which is above the 0. And then enter. And it's just going to add them all up for you, everything in those columns. And you can add up left or right as well to horizontally or vertically. If I want to do it here and add up all of these, everything that's a total, I want to add up to see all of my expenses for the month. I'll hit equals sum, and then we're in the H one after we put the brackets. So we're going to do, let's do start. You always start on the left side, as I always do. I don't know if it matters, but I always do. So we want B, and it's B34, which is this box here, B34, B column, 34th row, and then we're going to put the colon, and we're going to add up, horizontally up to the H row. So we're going to do H34, H34, and then the bracket, and then enter. So this is added up, everything across this way. Everything horizontal is added up into this box. I don't use those on this specific one for the months, but I'll show you totals that we do use that for too. But again, everything is manually put in. These are all manually. I download it as a comma delineated, and you'll see the option. It's for the file type, and literally then you open it up here and save it somewhere, like I showed you the saving titles. Label them however you want to label them, but I think adding a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in front of the months is a big help. And then you simply do, as I said, you do the equal sign and you click on the cell in the other form, and it brings the information over. Now that works even in this workbook. Like let's say here, let me give a total here. Let's get rid of this one here. This is January's. This is where I get the total. So my supplies for January, again, you're just going to click on the box. You want to put that number in. So I'll hit equals, and then I'm going to go over to the January tab, which is the sheet, and then I'm going to click here, which is the total I wanted for that column. And it just brings the total right back in for supplies. And that's literally what I did for each one of these numbers. You only do it once a month at the end of the month. It just takes a couple minutes, honestly. And this is a sheet breakdown of every bit of my expenses, everything coming and going, every dime that I have spent in 2014 that's gone through my business, everything. Now, again, nowadays we have art columns, and I've got columns for Discogs and Amazon and Etsy and even Poshmark. Even though we've stopped, I still have obviously a column, and I have them for some of the websites we do and some of the sci-fi things we do, and then I import items from my artwork as well and things along that line. So there's more to the new forms. I don't want to get you all muddied down with a bunch of stuff that's not going to be useful. But that's literally what I do with everything. Everything's on this form for my expenses. And I can pull out one sheet of paper that has every dime that I've spent anywhere and show it to anybody or do anything I need to do with this one sheet of paper. It has all my totals and one spot. And even once I put this form together, I have another form that pulls information off of this form. And that other form puts in and combines other sheets such as my actual sales, and it combines them into a P&L statement, which is a profit and loss statement. And I will go over that in another one because there's a little more to a profit and loss statement. You could have some percentages and some things in there that you might not be familiar with, and some terminology that you might not know about. So I will go over that in another one if there's interest. But this is the basics. You would do the same thing for a sales sheet to record your sales. You can literally make a second copy of this and then rename it as a sales sheet and then bring in sales the same way you're doing this. This form basics that you got right here, you can use for anything. It's just a matter of changing stuff up. You can delete columns, you can change them back. It literally depends on what you want to do with them. And I've got some other things on this sheet too, some other columns. I do utilities and things like that. And then I also do, I have got my business owner's insurance here, my BOP. Then I've got my breakdown over here for utilities. It's usually an average, and then it's corrected at the end of the year. And then I do the percentage of my business versus, my house. We use 30% of pretty much all of our utilities for my business. At the time, we lived in a smaller house, so we used 30% of that facilities, utilities to run our business. So all these numbers are figured out at 0.3, which is 30% of the number that we actually had. So I've got my heating, gas, the house payments, my phone service, which was the DSL, my water, my electricity, and here's obviously utility total, and then you have a 30% of that is what I spend a year out of my housing total, and that's where I get these numbers here. And this is just utilities again. And this number here is the total for all the utilities for my whole year, and that number is transferred over to here. Now this form is this column here is a little different. What I've done is if I wanted to include a utility from one of the months, I don't have the column there right this minute, but I could just add utilities in any one of these and then transfer it anywhere onto this sheet. This formula I have here adds up everything in the this box, which is D4, where January is, all the way down to D15. And it also picks up and adds this number here. So you can do multiple functions in the same cell, because I've added up this column, and then after I've added up the column, it's adding in I-25, which here's I, and we go down to 25, and that's this block here. But this one here is actually multiplying this box, which is H25, times 0.3, which is 30%. And that's where I get the total from. And anywhere you change anything, if you only change it in this column here, you add in your totals in this column, and then it goes ahead and figures out the 30%, and it'll add up the total. So any number you change will automatically change this total, which will in turn change this total, which will then in turn change this total, and it'll also change the total that is on two other sheets that these figures transfer to, a P&L and then another breakdown sheet that I use. So everything automatically changes as long as you hit the equals and you click on the cell you want. it automatically fixes everything. So this is something you can get for, just the cost of getting Excel. You don't have to pay and trust a online service with your data. I would never trust any online service with my data. That's just a given. I mean, they can be hacked any day of the week. This is locked away. This is actually usually done on a computer that does not have internet access other than on a subnet in my house on its own separate firewall. So it's double firewalled on a subnet, that's routed off as well too. So it's not something you can just get into my house. I have a networking degree, so I do have a network that runs through our house. Everything is subnetted off and partitioned any way we can. I have servers in the house that run the rest of the PCs and our workstations, and like an everyday network. I have server 2007 that I use. I got it from college, so I've had it forever. But that's what I do, and that's how this all works together. Anything in here can be changed. Let's say you want to just change a block, just change the color. You don't like that. If you can't remember the color, click on a box and hit Format Painter. Right up here in the Home section is a little broom. You click that box, and then just click over here, and it copies whatever you're doing. You got to watch out though on some of these because I've partitioned and bordered it off differently up here. So, but no big deal. You can just hit right here on this and it'll undo it. But you can change the color for anything. In here, I've actually done every other row a different color, and that's just by doing this. You can just again change it. That's all there is to it. And if I want to change it back, Format Painter, back on, and boom, it's there. All these borders here are something that I did myself too. You can just pick a cell you want or a group of cells, and you go to here, right click, and then go down to Format Cells. Now you can add borders of any kind, thick border. Let's do it outside. If you click just this one, the outline, it's only going to do the outer box and not the inside cross pieces. So it's not going to do any of the cross ones. So you just have a big box. So if you want to change that, you can go back in, Format Cell again, and add the cross ones, the cross lines. So now it's got everything. You don't like that, we can just get rid of all of it, go back to Format Cell, and then you can just click None. And it's back to normal. And you can do the dotted lines. There's many options. So if you're in here, you can do dotted lines. Whatever you want to do. There's all these options. You can do them diagonal lines in here. Wherever you click on here, it's going to draw a line. Whichever one you pick. So that's how I did all the blocks and all the design work you see on here. This is a standardized setup you'd see on any typical documents from corporations. This is what a store would normally do to break down. And you can also change the alignment on these. Let's go back out and just pick one block. We already had one. Let's go out and let's show you something real quick here. You can pick so it always knows that it's a number. Let's say we want to only do currency for that cell. That's how I've done the cells for the dollar amounts you see up in here. So now if I type something in here, it's going to change it into $1. So it automatically does that too. Let's say you don't like how it looks in the middle of the cell and you want to change that. You can click over here and you can center it in that cell. So everything's uniform. So now it's in the middle of the cell and it's not right justified. These are all right justified over here. This is just in the middle. Let's show you something else. I'm going to pick 4 cells here, and you can format these to actually merge the cells. And now I'll show you which ones are that in just a second here. So now I've merged, and this is just basically a giant cell. And that's what I did up here. This is one cell, one long cell that I made a size that I wanted. And you can change that cell or whatever the case may be. And again, here, whatever I type in is in just that one big cell. We're going to back that out, though, because I don't really need that. And we'll go back in and delete this back out. Everything on here can be customized. On this one here, what I've done, and it's going to be on the copy you see there, all the yellow tabs here are something you do not want to touch. Do not touch yellow or green tabs at all. Don't push anything in there. These are all formulas. The yellow tabs are expenses. I know a lot of people do red, but it's just hard to see, and I didn't feel like messing with the red. The yellow stands out for me. I only have expenses on here anyway, so that's all I need to worry about. On the green tabs, I don't pay postage. The postage is paid for by the buyer, so I don't pay postage. So that is not included in my expenses, but these are expenses that I have to report to the federal government so I can claim the credit. When eBay reports your sales, it includes the postage. So for me to not be able to be charged on my income tax for that postage, I have to subtract it. But it is not included in my profit and loss statement the same way, because it is not something that I personally have to deal with. So I don't include it that way on my paperwork. I do for the government, and I do when I download eBay's figures use those numbers. But again, as I said, I don't have to use them. So if you want to use this form, you can switch this over and add that into your total. So right here, if you wanted to include this box, which is J column, and 16, you'd click back over here, and you could just put the plus sign and then J and 16. So now this total includes my shipping. That's all you would have to do that. So if you charge, if you include free shipping, that'll include the totals then. And this number for the shipping paid is straight from PayPal. It's off one of the forms. It has a total paid. That's if you pay through eBay. And my postage comes straight through there. If it's not, for some reason, I have to go down to the post office, I'll put that total in my admin file then and just put it in there. These are numbers for you. They're not necessarily for anybody else. So if it's not, you're missing like one postage item in there, you have to save the receipt anyway. So it goes in with my receipts, which are in an admin and expense folder or envelope. So at that point, I just put those receipts in there too and just throw it in the admin file. Usually I have to drive down there and there's gas and all that. So that all just goes in a separate file. Like when I'm doing the monthlies, I put in an envelope that just has January monthly expenses on the outside of the envelope, and it includes every receipt that I need to cover all these entries in here. Obviously, I'm not going to have the PayPal one, but you print off a sheet, the main sales sheet that just has the totals, and you can use that. And the same thing with the taxes if you wish. You don't really need to, as long as you're saving the file somewhere and backing up. I have a hard copy of all my paperwork on a DVD. I've just burned a copy on it, and that's what I keep for everything. But this is just the basics on this here. But this form will pretty much do everything you need, and I've showed you how it works. Again, the inventory items, which is merchandise on this sheet, you can change the name. I just put in merchandise because it's what I started, and we can change this to merchandise if you want. Just click on the cell and then type in merchandise if that helps you, or change these up here. But each month has the exact same form. I just created one. I right-clicked down here onto the tab, and I did move or copy. And what it will do, it'll copy that form, or create a copy here, and then you could actually tell it where to put it. The whole works. And so it's not a big deal to create one of these booklets. It's very easy once you understand how it all works. And again, this is just a merged cell right up here on the top, just as I showed you. I've blocked them all out with borders. These are all borders under format. Just format a cell, and under borders. You can adjust the fill. You can protect certain cells so that you don't override a formula by accident, which is something that I recommend for people who aren't up on it. I can't protect it for you, because once you change or attach your own stuff, your own documents and your own links, you will have to protect it after that. But it's literally clicking on the protections, the cells that you want to protect, and then clicking OK. Once it's locked and you're done with the whole form, you'll have to go to Review and just hit Protect Workbook here. And that'll protect everything that you've locked in the formatting of that cell. That way no one can override your forms. Now, I don't do that here because I know how to fix them if I did. You can always undo, click the undo button if you quickly made a mistake. But that's all there is to it. Every one of these just pulls from a different column. So my eBay fees, that pulls from the total for January. This one comes from the form, as I said, from my eBay form, and it is totaled down here. So in case there was some other fees or credit that was added on later on, I can just add another one in. This, as I said right here, is a sum of, this is the G column, G3, which is G, and here's the 3. We're in the third row, all the way down to G33. Don't get confused with that 31 there. That's the actual day of the month, but it's row 33 and column G. So that's the ones it adds up. So it's adding up the total. So that total comes down to here. It brings this automatically down. And this number, this $1,141.14, is actually linked right here. As I said, I did the equal sign. And we'll do that one more time. Let me delete this again. I'm just going to click on the cell I need to put that total in and click equals. And then I'm going to go down to the actual sheet and then click the cell I want it to equal to, and then click enter.
and then boom, it's right back there, the same number, $1,141.14. And again, I did that for every one of these for each month. And again, if you're doing a projection sheet, you could just do projections and tie each one of that to this sheet. You have to add some columns and things, but that's really easy. But you could just hit insert. A column is the up and down, the letters. That's M. We're in the N column now. And then the rows would be the numbers. So if you add one, it's going to add it to where you want. It's going to ask you where you want to add it, if it's a row up or down and that kind of thing. But that's all there is to adding more to it. And again, you see how the borders are done. I've showed you that in formatting. The Excel way to do it is really, honestly, very easy. I wouldn't use QuickBooks or anything like that for most of this. There's a way to do all that here in Excel. There's no sense in doing it on a daily basis in my book. You do it at the end of the week if you're going to do it. I have weekly paperwork I do every single week, and I just import a sheet of all of my sales for the week, and I can just instantly sort it down. As long as, again, as you do it, you import it as a comma delineated sheet, which is an Excel sheet. And boom, you've got it already there. You don't have to copy. You don't have to sit there and type this in. If you need to add in your totals, you can do that as well too. You can add in on that sheet, add another column into that sheet, and add in what you paid for it if that's how you're doing it. There's many ways to do your accounting. You know, some people don't have to do inventory, you know, depending on how you handle it, how you file. The status quo says if you make over a certain amount, you have to do inventory. If you make under that amount, you do not have to do inventory. If you have to do labor or produce or have production involved in making your product, you may not have to do inventory as well either. So you'll see sellers, you know, not doing an inventory at the end of the year or the end of the month, and then you'll have others that are wasting time in doing those inventories at the end of the month or end of the year. I'm not going to get into what you should or shouldn't do. That is your own issue that you will have to solve with you and your accountant or you on your own. I don't like to make recommendations that, you know, could affect you legally wise or anything like that. That is something, again, as I said, you will need to do. If you're doing a lot of money through your business, I would honestly recommend getting an accountant either way. We have an accountant that just does the final paperwork, you know, the end of the year tax forms themselves, and that obviously does our labor, and they pay our unemployment, workman's compensation, and all that works for us. Again, we have a separate bank account just for that. So no way no one would have account to anything other than just to cover the expenses for labor. But that's with that. But again, if there's any questions you have on here, I think I've pretty much showed you how to pretty much set this all up. You should pretty much know how to do the basics. Like in the home here, you can change and unbold it or bold it or whatever the case may be, underline it, italicize it. Everything else on the top here works pretty much just like it does in Word or Access or any of the other Office products. And you could, again, you can right-click on the tab, you can change the name, rename it, you can delete it, you can insert something else, you can protect that sheet. So anything you have locked in it as well can be protected from right here as well, or you can protect the whole workbook as I showed you, which is under review. So just, you know, protect the sheet or whatever you're going to do, you can do that from here as well too. So again, that's how I do that. And I would recommend doing the protect sheet. Block the ones that you are worried about, the ones that have formulas. I didn't lock anything. So if let's say you want to protect something, let me make sure I'm on the right month so we're not mixing it up. Let's start in January. So if I want to protect this column here, you'd highlight the column you want to protect. You'd right click, you'd format cells, and then you'd click the lock button, and that would lock those formulas. And then once you've done that, and what you want to also make sure is the rest of the cells, we're just going to pick a few to see, make sure the rest of the cells are not locked. So those are not locked. So then we're going to go down here and go to Protect Sheet, and we'll let them be there. Protect Sheet, and by clicking this lets people click on the cells. It just won't let them alter anything that's been locked. So we're going to click OK, and now it won't let you type in a number into any of the formulas, but you can still type in items here on any of the other cells that aren't locked. So this is how protection works. It allows you to protect your formulas and the things that you don't want anybody else getting to. And you can unprotect it anytime and change something or alter it. But that's how all the forms I have work. And again, this is just the basics. I can go way into details on Excel. I can show you how to, you know, tie in, you know, graphs and bar charts, and how to tie in Access, and how to tie in Outlook, and tie in a calendar, and tie in Word documents in here too. All these things are interchangeable. everything in Microsoft Office is interchangeable and can be tied together. So when I have lists of items that I list, and I'll list them in a bin, I have another spreadsheet that has bins on it. And that spreadsheet is tied to a calendar of dates. And I can pull up dates that things were listed on, and I can pull it up many, many different ways. But that's how this all works. It's just with an equals, and then I'm clicking on a cell, or I'm clicking on a sheet, or I'm importing sheets, or I'm adding... you can insert a ton of stuff. So you can do tables, you can pivot tables, you can do pictures, clip art, shapes, columns, whatever you want to add, bar graphs, pie graphs. You can base them on information from other documents the same way. It all links together. All these have active links that link things together. You can break links, you can add links. It literally lets you do a ton of stuff. But this is the form. I would recommend, if you're curious at all, get yourself the copy of it from here down below in the description and play around with it. Put some numbers in there and see how you feel. If I get a lot of comments here in another week or two, I'll probably try and maybe do another form. Maybe I'll do a projection sheet for you and maybe a P&L. I wasn't sure how long this would take, so I'm just covering this one document today. You see there's a ton of stuff in here. This literally is all you need to do to handle every dime of expenses that come into your business. And again, it's going to keep track perfectly fine as long as you type in the right information. Or again, as I showed you, you can link from the actual document that you downloaded straight from eBay. So the second you download it from eBay, you can use that specific document to link and pull the information to this sheet, and you're all set. It literally keeps everything together, and you keep them all in the same area. So as long as it's on your computer, in your files, on that same computer, you can link anything you want together pretty much in Excel. And it's the bomb for any of this stuff. But that's what I got here. Hopefully you learned something from it, and hopefully you're able to use it for yourself too.
Well, there you go. There's some of the forms I use. Again, these are older forms. I've updated many of them. It just gives you an idea on what you can do with some of these forms and how easy Excel is to use. The basics are easy once you get them. You can start with my forms. You can alter them however you want. If you don't like my forms, that's fine, but they're there to use if you would like. And again, if you haven't realized that they're down below, please check below. You will see the forms down there. And again, there's just a link, and it'll take you to that form, and you can do what you wish with it. For mine, when we do forms here, I usually lock them. You can protect the forms itself, so only certain cells can be inputted. So if you've got other people doing your forms, block all the cells but the important key input ones, and that's all they would be able to input, and then put the formulas on other cells. That way no one can overwrite your formula and change anything, so that the totals are always going to be right. It's just an easier thing to do, and that it covers you. But again, Don the Auction Professor, hopefully that gave you some ideas. Hopefully you learned something. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below, subscribe, and tell a friend.